Do you remember being in high school and you had a teacher and you were in math class, specifically algebra, and you really didn't pay attention, but you heard them talk about something in regards to scatter plot, correlation, things of that nature? Well, if that was you and you did not pay attention in class like me, I made this video specifically for you. So today we're going to be talking about scatter plots and when to use them in data analysis and in project management. Hey everybody, welcome to The Practical Place. My name is Ryan Holguin and I am a certified project management professional. And as I said, I want to talk to you today about scatter plots or scatter chart, however you want to call it, and talk about a few different use cases for when to use one. And I actually think you're going to find it really helpful. Like I said in the video at the beginning, that maybe you didn't pay attention in algebra just like me, and you really aren't quite sure what a scatter plot does or what the purpose of it is. Well, if you're an aspiring project manager or professional or somebody who loves data, hopefully you find this video helpful. And I just want to say I appreciate everybody who has been watching these videos and subscribing to the channel. It means a lot to me. You know, it's really fun to see, this starting from nothing and to start to grow into a small community of people who enjoy growth and growing and growing in their career and in their knowledge, whether it's professionally or personally. I just really appreciate you guys for watching these videos and finding value in them. So yeah, so what is a scatter plot? So a scatter plot is a visual representation. So it's a chart. If you've been following this series of how-to videos when it comes to charts and visualizations, this is another one of those visualization tools that you can use. So you can put it in a dashboard, you can put it in a single request that you get from your leader, or if you want to see yourself. Basically what you're doing is you're measuring two different variables or two different metrics against each other. So you want to find something which is called the independent variable. So let's say in my video or in my examples here in a minute, I'm gonna show you. So I'm gonna look at NBA or NFL wide receivers, and the independent variable that I want to measure against is the annual salary of the top 20 highest paid wide receivers, and I want to see if that correlates to their on-the-field performance, looking at one specific metric. And so that's basically what you're doing, is you're looking at you ask yourself the question of, is this one thing that we're doing, or is this one metric or component of this scenario, does the correlation of whichever direction that goes, does that correlate with how it affects anything else? And so that's what you're trying to do. So you have an independent variable, and then you have a dependent variable, which you're measuring against that to kind of see the relationship between the two. And I'm going to show you visually what that looks like here in Excel. And there's two different ways to look at, or three different ways that this can take place. So you have a positive correlation from left to right where it's going up. You have a negative correlation left to right where it's going down, and then you have a neutral correlation, which is there's really no consistent correlation of direction that dependent variable is going to be going. And so I'm going to share my screen now. We're going to kind of walk through this, an example where I already have data set up, and take a look at it. So let's go. Okay, so here I have Excel pulled up, and like I said, I'm going to go through two examples today of how to use this in a practical way. Obviously, you may not be looking into sports statistics or data whenever you're using a scatter plot or looking to use one. Maybe you're in a corporate environment and you need to provide information to your director. I just hope that these examples help you just understand how to map out your data in a table and then be able to visually represent what you have in your data set there. So this is a really small example, these two are, but again, hopefully this helps you. So as you can see here, I have a list. I have three columns here. I have the players, the list of NFL wide receivers, and basically what I want to see is if their average annual salary, let me open this up here. I just took the top 20 highest paid wide receivers based on their average annual salary, and I want to measure that against the average number of yards per game that they got in the 2024-2025 NFL season. So I did my best to get the most accurate data that I could from the internet. So if you guys know their annual salaries and you want to correct me, feel free to do so, but I did my best. So anyways, so that's what I want to measure. So as you can see, I have this filtered from largest to smallest as it relates to their average annual salary. And so as I said, that's going to be my independent variable. That's what I want to measure against. As this either decreases from the highest paid to the highest paid in the top 20, is there a correlation here in the orange dots or in the yards per game? So as you can see here, this is what I'm calling the negative correlation, right? So let me go ahead and get maybe I get a arrow here. I'm going to insert an arrow. So this is my negative correlation. You see it going down, right? And so if that's the case, I want to see, is that same correlation happen with my dependent variable or the yards per game, right? So if I look here, there's really no consistency in my opinion if I'm looking at this. So you see my highest paid, Jamar Chase, the highest paid receiver on average per year, did get the most yards per game in the last season. But as you can see here, who's number 19? Chris Godwin got 82.3 yards per game. I think that's him right here. And he's closer to the top, but he's closer to the bottom as it relates to average annual salary. So if I were to flip this, smallest to largest, and it was going to turn into a positive correlation as it relates to my independent variable here, does that mean that this is positive? I mean, it just gives you another way to look at it, right? And you really don't see any sort of consistency. It's kind of funny. You have the group of 3 here, a group of 3 here, 2, and then a sort of huge jump here of positive correlation in these last 4 guys, right? And so this would be the highest paid guys, it looks like, which is, at least up here, these are the top 2 highest paid guys, Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. So you can see how that's consistent with their pay, but everything else, I wouldn't feel confident saying average annual salary is a direct correlation to how many yards per game that receiver is going to get. And this goes into another point. You may have heard the term correlation doesn't always equal causation, meaning just because 2 different metrics or variables correlate to each other, that doesn't necessarily mean that's what's causing each thing to happen. So in this case, there's not really even a correlation. There's a slight correlation, but it's not really definitive. Maybe if I were to take the top 100 players as far as yards per game and then measure that against their average annual salary, maybe that would be more consistent. But I would think honestly it's going to be across the board just because of the state of the NFL. And here's another tip as far as whenever you're doing data analysis or showing visualizations to your leaders is, it's one thing to just put data down and to visually represent it. It's another thing to actually know the skill or the discipline in which you're in so that you can really speak into the data. You can give that sort of expert advice based on what you know about that situation or the story behind the numbers. And that's really what I would say sets you ahead of just somebody who can understand data and can look at it, but they're not really an expert in that industry. Using your expertise to speak, add more texture or color to the data is really key, I would say. So here my conclusion would say there's really no correlation. The more you pay them, it looks like maybe the top 1%er here, you're gonna get a correlation. You wanna pay them what they're worth, but everybody else, there's really no consistency here as far as yards per game. If I wanted to make my yards per game the independent variable, let's go from smallest to largest here, and you can see, I'm gonna just move this up. Here's my positive correlation, and this is my yards per game. It's really not that consistent. It kind of slightly goes up, but again, here, there's guys over here that are in the top 5. That's number 5. And they're not really, and the first guy here is, keeping up with this. So, there's no correlation. It's kind of a straight line. If you ask me, it's pretty much a straight line, a neutral correlation from what I see in this chart. So that's my takeaway in this chart is that there's really no correlation. I wouldn't feel confident saying, the more you pay a guy, the more production they're going to give you. And there's a lot of other variables that you need to measure against too. And this is just one way to look at things, but it's not going to tell the entire story. So let's go to my NBA tab here. And basically what I want to do here is the independent variable that I want to measure against is the points per game. So as you can see, I have a negative correlation here, but let me turn this into a positive actually. And so the top 20 NBA players as it stands today, NBA season is not completed yet, so keep that in mind. So what I want to measure is as it relates to the higher scorers in the NBA, does that correlate with the number of wins that team's going to have? In other words, if a player scores more on average for their team, does that mean that they're going to win more versus other guys who don't score, higher volume points per game? That's what we want to look at today. So my independent variable is going to be the points per game. And as you can see, I have my top 20 here of scorers, NBA scorers. And again, I'm going to add an arrow here. And my points per game is in blue. As you can see, it's a positive correlation because I'm going from smallest to largest. And there's a few outliers here. You have this guy who's an outlier. Who's this? Donovan Mitchell. His team has 57 wins. I think they're the top winningest teams in the league. But his points per game, as it relates to the top 20 players, points per game, he's in the bottom 3. So he's an outlier. There's an outlier right here. Who's this outlier? Tyrese Maxey, the 76ers. So he has a 26.3 points per game, but his team only has 23 wins. So that's an outlier as well. There seems to be more of a correlation here based on the number of wins and the points per game for the player. Now, I will say, again, speaking into the data, if I were to present this to somebody, there's a few players on here where they play for the same team, so that might play a factor as well, where you have 2 guys on your team that are the top 20 scorers in the league. That's probably going to help your team. So that's what I would say. There's maybe a slight correlation to points per game. Now, let me flip it and say the number of wins is the independent variable. So let me go from smallest to largest here. As you can see, the orange is going to turn into my independent variable, and it's going to go into a positive correlation here, as you can see from my arrow going up. So we're going to follow the orange here. So we know that that's going up. Whoops. But is my blue going up? That's really the question. So we're going to start right here. This is number 1. And again, here's an outlier, and it's going to go right here. Again, it's a pretty slight correlation. I can add another arrow just to give you a better representation. So this is my independent variable in blue. Actually, let me change this to orange if I'm able to, just to match the color. And then I'm gonna insert another shape, which is this one. And you guys tell me, what do you think? You can leave it in the comments. Would you say that this is a correlation, a slight positive correlation, neutral correlation? What would your conclusion be from just looking at this? Is the number of wins a team has correlated to whether that team's gonna have a top 20 score in the NBA as it relates to points per game? I would say it's a slight correlation, but it's pretty slight neutral correlation. So there'd be other sort of metrics that I would have to look at within the stats to see what's more of a correlation or causation of the number of wins. You could look at the defensive, points per game that a defense allows. You could look at the number of 3-pointers a team makes on average, the field goal percentage. There's a number of things you could look at, but these are just two basic examples I wanted to show you just to give you an idea of how to look at a scatter plot and to see how you would use one in your business. So there you have it, guys. That is how to use a scatter plot, and I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, I would encourage you to please like this video, leave a comment on what you found helpful about it, if I left anything out, and don't forget to subscribe here to The Practical Place. Anytime we upload a video, you'll be notified if you click that bell icon, and it will tell you whenever I upload a video. I try to be as consistent as I can. I do have a full-time job as well, so I do this because I actually enjoy doing it. I enjoy teaching, I enjoy helping as much as I can. So if you enjoy something like that, if you want to grow as a professional in your technical skills when it comes to project management, data analysis, things like that, and I would encourage you to subscribe. Also, I do like to talk about sort of the psychological side of being a professional sometimes, and so if that's something that interests you as well, I have videos on that. Go check those out. But subscribe if that's something you're into as well. As I said in the beginning of the video, I'm really encouraged by those who do watch the video and comment and subscribe and engage with it. I really appreciate that. I do not take that lightly. If you think that this video and videos like this would be helpful to somebody you know, I would encourage you to send it to them so that we can grow this community and help others learn to be better professionals and continue to grow in your craft where you're at. So that's going to do it for today. Again, my name is Ryan Holguin here with The Practical Place. I will see you in the next video.